our next speaker, and she is highly regarded organizational, individual, and family patterns expert, systematic coach, trainer, facilitator, and motivational speaker. She has 18 years expertise in assessing high performance individuals, Fortune 500 executives and teams, as well as legacy families, to break limiting cycles and reframe challenges into lasting successes. Judy specializes in addressing inherited patterns that limit performance and achievement. We don't just inherit physical DNA, we also inherit patterns like money patterns. She explores limiting patterns to understand patterns in personal and organizational systems and the points at which they intersect, and then shows her clients how to create lasting breakthroughs to success. So I'm very, very happy to welcome Miss Judy now. And let's make sure we have her up on the screen. And looking, I saw you earlier. There she is. Can I hear you?
Yeah.
I can hear her too, and I can see you. So perfect. Welcome, Judy. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. The only thing is I now can't see you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there's a button at the bottom of your, well.
I know normally I pin you,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't find you to pin.
Huh.
But let's see. I got you here. It's fine. I can see you as you. Yeah, I'm great.
Okay. All right. Well, you won't be able to see me, but I can see you. We can see you, and that's really important. So that's great. And people are tired of seeing me anyway. So you know, we've been at it all day. No, just kidding. So Judy, we want to start with, tell us about what you do and how you came to do it, because you have such an extensive background. So please share with us.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me today. I got to listen to a little bit of your last speaker, who was awesome. And a lot of what she was teaching is very aligned with what I teach. How did I get into it? It's one of those, I think I fell into it type of things. My father had just been killed. I said to somebody, either I write books or I go crazy. So I got into writing books. And long story short, I wound up studying with somebody who could teach me about patterns in family systems. And then that became an ask from clients for, if you can do this, can you do it in organizations too? So I studied that and then developed sort of a hybrid, brought the two together, because what I discovered very quickly was, if you're a leader or whatever it is that you're doing in life, no matter who you are began at home. So you can't exclude one for the other, right? They both belong. So I brought the two modalities together, and that's a lot of what I teach. Well, of course, so then they begin to realize that you're inheriting these patterns, which I'll talk about in a bit, but those are all sorts of patterns. And you asked me today to speak about money DNA, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. I think a lot of people, when I tell them I love speaking about money, they go, you know, it's all about money. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Money is like any other metaphor. It's this lovely, huge breathing force. And when you know what to do with it and you know where your money DNA came from, everything changes. And so, yeah, if we get back to what you started off saying, we don't just inherit physical DNA. Like Donna was saying before, this is now scientifically backed up, which is super helpful because science is backing this evolution, right? Mm-hmm. And so there are two places that it touches into really well. One is the neuroscience. We come with a set of multi-generational patterns as well as our own. And these are wired and fired into our brains. So 90% of the time, what we're doing is we're living somebody else's history. We're not creating our own future. And the same thing happens for money. We inherit a set of thoughts, feelings, actions, reactions, often linked directly to a particular event that sparks this whole reaction or cascade, and then gives us a mindset which becomes a pattern, which becomes the truth, but it's not the truth. It's just your truth. And the best thing of all is you can change that truth anytime you want to. So what I specialize in doing in both organizations and for, individuals is we do detailed explorations of what are you thinking, what are you feeling, what are your actions, where did that come from? Are they really yours, or do they belong to someone else and you're very faithfully kind of handling them as though they were yours? And sometimes we're connected in what we call a hidden loyalty or a blind loyalty to someone else who may have struggled financially, for example. And so if they struggled financially and they weren't spoken about, and it created what we call an exclusion, the system's out of balance. And it'll keep looking for balance in every one of the members until, yay, it comes to you, and you're the one who gets to have a look at that pattern. So if we're looking at money DNA, I listened to you speaking about how some people are open to some pieces and how some people have it so much easier with money than others do. If you look at your language that you're telling yourself around money, it's going to tell you a ton of what lives in your system. And so I say to people, they'll come to me and say, I want to be rich. Great. So tell me about rich. Tell me about rich people. Oh, they're terrible. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they're dreadful. And I go, okay, so now we know why you're not getting there, because you don't want to lie, cheat, or steal. So we tell ourselves one set of things, but we'd like to do it, but we've got all of this stuff happening here that comes from multiple generations that tells us why we can't have it. And so what we've got to look at is we're sitting with two sets of patterns, an inherited set that often wants to start, or not start, actually wants to stop. And your set that's going, I really want to do more with money. I really want to go out there and be amazing and do the things I want to do and have the things I want to have and be that person. But then we've got this little fellow over here, this pattern going, you know, those greedy people, we can't do that. So it's looking to see what is the pattern that's trying to rest, what wants to stop. And that's frequently linked to your multi-generational DNA. And then what is the pattern that's trying to start? And that's often linked to your heart's desires and your dreams. They're very clever things. They're the piece that's going to evolve the system for you. So you will see people also, and you've seen this, I know you'll have seen this, they make all the money and then suddenly they give it away, they lose it, it goes bye-bye, and they're going, what happened? If you go and look at their money DNA, the chances are they've just at the peak of success suddenly gotten that subconscious one that goes, and they've U-turned and come down in response to the hidden pattern. So that's a lot of what I look at.
That is so interesting. I have to admit, when Sapna introduced me to you and you told me that what you specialize in and what you do, I was dumbfounded, because money DNA is such a new concept to me but it makes complete sense when you think about it. And of course, the way you eloquently explained it all, and it makes me think of how we could inherit our parents' eye color, right?
Absolutely.
Our parents' hair color.
Right.
We know about us humans having very, very primitive kind of reflexes, as we did way back in the caveman days, like fight or flight. But
exactly,
think about how we could have inherited other things about our ancestors besides like the physical attributes, like the eye color, the hair color. Right. We could have inherited these patterns of behavior, thoughts, and now we're walking around not knowing why we feel the way we feel about money. And it really it can be in your DNA. And of course, a lot societal kind of things, take also influence. But It's just,
Oh,
it makes,
absolutely. It contributes, right? Because it's not
does.
just that you inherit it from your mom and dad. You inherit it from your culture, your ethnicity, your country. In fact, I have a fascinating piece with Canadian. I work with Canadians quite a lot. And when I was in Montreal, one of them said, we were doing a money DNA piece, and they said to me, but you don't understand. In Montreal, the saying is, we are made for little bread or small bread. So, of course, if you've got that piece sitting there going, this is what you have to do to be a good person in Montreal, you're bumping into that every time you go over it. In fact, I don't know if it's Sweden, and I'm saying Sweden with kind of fingers crossed here, but I think it's Sweden or Finland, where your money, your wealth is declared. Everybody can see who earns what and who has what.
Oh,
It's
okay.
declared. And if you have a lot, it's frowned on. So now you're wanting to go and do this thing. You have great ideas of what you want to do with your money, and society is telling you, oh, you're not good, are you? So then what we call that is the money conscience of the system, the rules of the system that keep you locked in. To belong here, you must do this and this and this and this. But it takes a pioneer, who often, by the way, feels like an imposter, to go, this is not working for me. I need to do something else. And so what we do when we're working with it is we look at, what are the rules in your system? What do you tell yourselves? What do you think about this? What would happen if you took one step beyond those accepted rules and did just this? And you'll actually see people go as white as a sheet. We can't do that. You know, they'll kick me out. I'll never belong. And this is what bonds us, is the conscience of the system. But when we move beyond that, we start to discover that you are not going to be smited with a piece of 2x4. You are not going to die. In fact, you're going to evolve the system. And so money DNA is the same. You have, every single one of us has a money DNA of our own, linked to a multi-generational one. And it probably began for you very, very young. If you think of yourself, I'm going to give you an example of what I discovered for me. I realized that I had a great love for money from teeny tiny as a 3-year-old, but it wasn't money. My mother used to have these plants called cannas, and they would drop all sorts of seeds. And I picked those up because I knew that if I had more of those seeds, we could plant those and we'd have more flowers, right?
Right.
So that was a currency, although I didn't know what it was at the time. Every one of us has had that. You may have had it with dolls. Somebody else may have had it with trucks or whatever it was at the time. We've all had those. And you want to know what you've been told about that too. Don't be greedy, share a lot, give it away. Nice people don't have money. My biggest thing always was at the collection plate. I could never understand why I couldn't take change. I mean, I didn't mind putting the coins in, but why didn't I get some back? So yeah, we all have this highly unique money DNA language, and you want to become aware of, what are you thinking? When somebody says, here's money, or you feel like you don't have enough money, what are the thoughts? So when people are just starting out with it, I say to them, sit down with money and just put an object in front of you that represents money, and look at it, and then start to write down, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Because those two together are going to start telling you what's going on. Am I allowed to have you? Am I not allowed to have you? If not, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Then ask yourself, what are the actions I take? And when you have a look at those, when you've done just those three, the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions, then ask yourself, does this belong to me? Who else in my family thinks this way? Who told me first how to think about money? Where do I think differently? And really hold on to, where do I think differently? Or what do I want differently? Because that's the one that's going to carry you forward. But the shame, the blame, the guilt, the sadness around money is probably not yours. It's sitting with those ancestors back there, and you are very faithfully executing what they began.
That's incredible. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to ask the audience, comment and tell us what's landing for you. What is shifting for you? What is something that you're taking away and you're looking at things in a different perspective when it comes to money? The money DNA.
I would love to hear. I'd love
for them to go ahead, and we'll look at the chat. But I just wanted to make that comment that the DNA, money DNA, is such a new concept to me, but it makes complete sense. So I want to see if the audience is also kind of, maybe this is the first time they've ever heard of it as well, and they see how it's landing for them and what they're thinking. So I can only imagine your sessions can probably get pretty emotional at times, because
a lot.
There's a lot of revelation. And then when you are aware, then you get to decide, do I want to accept this belief? Is it serving me still or not? And you get to decide. And so a comment came in and says, this cycle is so real. It is so real. And honestly, Judy, even within my family, when you were explaining it, I thought of the time where my husband, he grew up pretty poor, and then he joined the Army. And so returning back home, all excited after he went through training, hasn't seen his family in months, you know, he's ready to hang out and visit them. And one of his cousins looks at him and says, oh, what, you think you're too good for us now? You make money now? And so that was those cycles.
Notice the shaming, right? To keep him back in line.
Exactly. He was breaking out of that.
Absolutely.
What did you call it?
The unconscious loyalty.
Yes. And so it was guilting him for actually just earning money.
Let's make it small again.
So I think when he told me that story, it reminded me of the old saying that misery loves company sometimes. So we have to be okay. And that's where the work with you probably is very helpful. And with Sapna and Donna and all of you that work really more specifically on the mindset piece, is that helping people to be okay with having those dynamics shifting in their family. And usually those are only temporary. They're going to get used to the fact that, well, maybe I shouldn't be, you know, upset because, you know, my cousin gets to take me out to eat. Now he didn't used to be able to. Now he has a car, he can take me around. And so those are going to be temporary things for you being the first one to kind of break out of that.
It's a very scary thing, because you're moving beyond that conscience. And I see somebody saying my parents and grandparents passed on their money DNA to me, and I'm blessed. I didn't read the rest, but then they've passed on really healthy money DNA. I also saw somebody say something about love of money is the root of all evil. And that's something, it's one of the things I teach in class too. It's not. Lust of money is the root of all evil. Love of money is not. When you can love and respect it the way that you do any other flow in your life, it can be with you. Think of it this way. You want money, and yet you shun it, you're scared of it, you're guilty about it, you're angry about it. Would you treat a friend that way? And would a friend stay around you if you treated it that way? No, and money is no different. The other piece that I just wanted to touch in on that you said was changing mindset. The particular approach that I use uses constellations as well. So what that is constellations is a dimensionalizing of the issue. So when people come in with their money pieces, what we do is we set it up in a room. And if I've got live representatives, I will use the live representatives. Otherwise, we use paper, because we know you can quite quickly transfer thoughts and feelings onto inanimate objects. But what we do is we set up a spatial map of your money DNA. And you get to see, who am I loyal to? Who am I different from? What are the rules? What's stopping me from moving? What's allowing me to move? What's calling me to move? What is the pattern that's trying to rest? What is the pattern that's trying to emerge? Now, when somebody says to you, oh, you think you're all that because now you have money, the appropriate response is, yes, do you want to find out more?
I love it.
It's never to shame yourself back into being small. You just keep on walking, because that, all it is the fear of the system or the reaction of the system. But if you can keep a sense of humor and keep marching, I guarantee you the rest of the system will start following with you. It does. I know I've had many people who walk into class and they go, when they're in there, they can understand it because it's neuroscientifically and epigenetically grounded as well. And they walk in and they go, this makes such sense. My family will never come. And I say, give them 6 months or a year. And within 6 months to a year, in comes the next one and in comes the next one. And they're all going, oh, so that's why I do this with my money. Or that's why I, whatever it is. It becomes money. The other thing we want to understand is money is a synonym for just about everything in the world. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I had a girl who came to see me and she said, I'm very worried. So I know when people use idiosyncratic language, pay attention, right? She said to me, I'm very worried. I'm about to get a promotion with more money. So I said, okay. So we're very worried about success. She says, no, you don't understand it. If I get this promotion with more money, my father's going to give my brother more money, and that means he loves me less. And I said to her, well, okay, let's just go back, because what you want to do with any of this is go back to the event. Often what we do is we make that whole story up and we assume that we are right. In fact, we would swear on a stack that we are right because we don't go and check. So she says, I know what it was. When I was about 4, my dad was laid off from work for a year. In that year, he played with me every single day. And then one day he came home and he said to me, I found a job. I've got to go to work. And I said to him, but then who will play with me? And he said, I'll play with you sometimes, but you must remember, I love this family. And in order to love this family, I must make money. So what did she do? Love is money, or money is love. So if she's getting less money from dad, she's getting less love. And we do this. We make money mean all sorts of things. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm evil, I'm nice, I'm rich, I have standing, and we assume that's the truth. And when things happen around money, we also make assumptions that we don't check. And so we keep perpetuating that very strange pattern that came from great-great-grandfather back there that's not relevant here anymore, but we're still pounding it out there.
Wow. I did see somebody put in the chat that they wonder how DNA can be split within maybe siblings. Like maybe you take a DNA that's of abundance and then maybe a sibling is the exact opposite, but you have the same parents, you have, you know, all the same experiences and that circle. How do you kind of explain that?
So here's what you want to look at. 2 things. And I just had a look at that comment too. So thank you for that comment. Sometimes what happens is this. We, in systems have 4 rules. And the 4 natural orders sound like this. I'm just going to go through them quickly because then I can use it to explain. Everybody has a right to belong. We know this. In systemic work, everybody has a right to belong. If anybody's right to belong is denied for any reason whatsoever, someone from a later generation will begin to repeat the life and the fate and the patterns of the one who was excluded. So let's stop right there. So this person has this great money DNA. There may be a whole lot going on for him, by the way, but has this great money DNA, but has a sibling who struggles. I would want to know who else somewhere in the family system struggled, because you may find that this sibling is identified with that person. Or who in the family may have it, but has a guilt or an inner struggle because the sibling may be amplifying that. There's another one that we look at, and that is there a history somewhere in the family of disinheritance? Because if there is, that can come down and split into one lot who do well and one lot who do not. And so you want to look at which patterns are popping up for those there. Who's been excluded? Are they subject to a hidden agenda? Or is there a disinheritance of some type that's created two kinds of, there you go. Great. Yes,
Wow.
beautiful. So just for you, just to explain that to you, if I was setting this up and I was setting up your mom, your dad, your brother, yourself, what we would probably see is the representatives start to move. And you see this quite clearly. You would likely go closer to your father. Your brother would likely go closer to your mother. So then what you would look at is you've taken on your father's, he's taken on your mother's. And the way to swing that around would be you already have that. He would just look at what is it that he needs to change without feeling like, oh dear, poor mom, she's high and dry, she's the only one. What did mom give him that he can take and say, this I got, and now I'm adding this money DNA. Mom, I got this from you. Dad, I got this from you, and both have a place to belong. Because in this case, it's almost as though the sibling has chosen one parent and the flow, and with the other parent may not be able to accept the flow in collusion with mom. And so there's an inner sentence that goes, my dear mom, so that you don't have to suffer alone, I'm going to struggle too.
Wow. So, wow, that's awesome. You're problem solving for people in our audience, and they're connecting. You're healing people. You're helping today. So I'm so grateful for that. Now back to the constellations, because that's really interesting, and it seems like it's so expanded over generations. How does that look as far as putting it together? Do we bring family members in, or it's just you and the person, and you are
okay.
How does that come together?
So what we do is often in an event, there won't be family members there, but what we know is that we have fields of resonance, and this you will see again scientifically studied. I look at you and I go, oh, she's easy to get to connect with, and I'll move in closer to you. I'll look across at somebody else and go, whoa, they don't smile a lot, they look a little intimidating, and I'll move back. We instinctively adjust to each other's fields. So when I set these up and I'll say to someone, choose a representative for your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. When you're standing in that field, you can begin to feel that systemic field working with you. And people go, yeah, really right. Until they come in and they stand in that, and that they start to experience that whole field of the family. Field of the family is something we feel very strongly. In fact, we feel fields very quickly and very powerfully. You know what you like and you know what you don't. You know what pushes you away and you know what brings you closer in. And the family system is no different. The lovely thing about the family system is that even though it is a field, it's also very logical. And the way that it allows us to bite it one way or the other is if you're not feeling it energetically, you're going to hear it and you're going to pick it up in your gut. I listen carefully for the idiosyncratic language. Somebody will say, I'll give you a great example. Somebody will walk in and say to me, oh my goodness, I just had the most catastrophic morning. I was nearly eliminated at least 3 times. And I go, okay, what happened? Well, I was 5 minutes late and the boss yelled. Okay, that's not what you said to begin with. Let's go back to that language, because the language that you speak in your system is unique to you, but it's telling you about the limitations and the patterns that live there, as well as the strengths. Pay attention. So I said to this particular person, okay, well, was there a catastrophe in the family? And she said, oh yeah, we were at the bottom, and I don't know where it was, somewhere in Palau. We were at the bottom when the mountain erupted. It swallowed my brother and father. We were spared by 3 yards. Well, okay, so now we know why we've got this catastrophic language sitting there.
Wow.
We also have money language that sits there. I'm not allowed. It's too expensive. I can't afford. I shouldn't waste. It comes, it goes. I spend it. You want to know where that comes from. When people tell me it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. Or one of my other favorites, which is you work, you work, you work, and then it all disappears. My first question is, which of your parents was in the Great Depression? Because you're speaking Great Depression language. They put their life's work into it, and that was snatched and it all disappeared. So where is your language coming from? Do you want that language to still live in you that way? Because if it does, you're going to find all sorts of ways to make that the truth. You will literally accumulate a whole bunch, and then some crazy scheme will come along and you'll go, boom, that looks good, and down you go. All you've done is very nicely imitated the pattern that came before. So you want to notice those patterns very carefully, but listen to your language. Listen to your language and watch your actions.
Listen to your language and you will start getting clues.
Oh boy, do you get clues. You are speaking and tattling about yourself and your family system all day long. You just don't realize it.
We have a question, Judy.
Sure.
And I'm hearing an echo, but if you guys are okay with hearing me, I'll say it. It is, why would a person repeat the same poor habits with money, paying bills late with a steady income, and lack of proper saving with a good financial foundation?
Okay, so say that to me again, because there were two pieces that were at odds with each other. So they have a good financial foundation, but
they lack the proper saving with a, well, let me repeat it all. Why would a person repeat the same poor habits with money, paying bills late with a steady income, and lack of proper saving with a good financial foundation? I think I can rephrase it by saying this person has a good financial foundation as far as resources, having a good income perhaps, but why would they then repeat the same poor habits, not paying their bills on time? And so that doesn't make sense, really. And we see that all the time.
It doesn't, and it does. If I was sitting with this person, I would sit down and say, tell me about your parents or whoever it is who had those original poor habits. What was happening? What got them to create those habits? Was there some sort of an event in which they couldn't pay them on time? And then this became a habit. Were they scared they wouldn't have enough? And so they held on to it for as long as they could before they had to let it go. Now, if that pattern sits there, as a child, you're picking up both the language and the actions. Did they see mom or dad struggling and holding on to that money? And so now for them, it becomes a question of, will I have enough? So my question would be, who didn't have enough? Mm-hmm. What was the event that caused the original cycle of habits? And then what you've got are two things. You've got this person who's in almost, they're in an intriguing position. They're sitting between the two. They know that this pattern should stop, but they're very loyal to the person who has this habit. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it difficult. So they know that they've got the foundation to actually be able to push off and do it differently. So we see a couple of things. If I do better than my parents, that may not feel good for my parents. How dare I do better than my parents? So that's a very sort of a subconscious but very common one. The other one is, if I don't do it the same way, I'm being disloyal to the system, which is even deeper, but it sits there. Once I do start doing it differently and I pay on time and I see that I do have enough and I don't have to hold on to it, what you're looking at is for this person to be able to build a strong enough case here to be able to overcome the old pattern, because otherwise they're going to get stuck in the old pattern. But if they can see a purpose and a goal over this side, they will move from the one to the other. So my piece for that person would be, build yourself a very solid purpose and goal around your money. And you don't have to do it all at once. Geremy will tell you it's step by step by step. Build it, but know what your goal is and very gently reverse engineer it and then work towards it. And you've got to build up enough energy. It's got to be fun. That's one of my words. It's got to be fun. It's got to make you light up. For me, when I first moved to this country, I fell in love with Disney. Disney is my favorite thing. And I always said, one day I want Disney timeshare. But I mean, it was so far out there. But I kept it there. And every time I had just a little, that would go into an envelope or something else until the day I had enough for a down payment. Took me a while, but it was fun. It was something I really wanted. So let it light a fire. If it's safety, whatever it looks like, make that something that is more important than being loyal to the old habit.
That's perfect. So I'm going to go to another question.
Yeah.
And it reads, how frequently, if at all, do you come across non-financial trauma in your clients, which manifests in desire of money as a way to construct security?
Non-financial trauma, lots. Because while money is a lovely vehicle, it may not be the driver. But anybody who wants to get to where it is they want to go knows that at some point money is going to come in, and they're going to have to learn to love it and be friends with it. But very often it does not start with a financial trauma at all. It starts with things like, I watch somebody struggle, not necessarily financially, just watch them struggle. I want to do better. I watch this and I really want to be a philanthropist one day. Disney, I look at Disney, it really didn't come from a financial trauma. I just knew that one of the things for me to say, hey, you've made it or you're getting there, would be when I could go do the Disney thing. And of course, that meant the money piece. So a lot of it is non-financial trauma. I deal with both. And by the way, I very seldom deal with trauma because I don't use the word much. I use significant events. Traumas are only traumas when we beat the poor things to death and we think we can't get out of them. Otherwise, they're significant events that turn into wonderful igniters for amazing success.
It's about perspective, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. It's listen to the words you're using. Are you using words like trauma? Are you using words like Judy recommends? Instead of trauma, replace that with significant events. And so that little shift, that energy within you, that will change your perspective, your attitude about it. And for me, when I hear maybe something like trauma, which is a real thing, but I think of somebody maybe using that word regularly as a part of their language in life and business and career decisions and everything. It reminds me of maybe somebody who is comfortable sitting in that almost like a victim versus somebody who has maybe changed it slightly to say significant events. And that's showing a person who maybe intends to circum that situation or that previous experience that they had.
I would say yes, and there's something in that. If somebody talks about trauma a lot, I'm intrigued. It's an important word. Where was the trauma in your family? Listen for those hot button words. It's not that you're becoming a victim. Your words matter. They're your gold. Especially the ones that are difficult and awful and miserable. Pay attention, because the words that you are using refer to an event somewhere in your system. And when you can identify that, you can begin to see the thoughts, feelings, actions that took place around that. And you can begin to unwind it and give that a place so that you can now swing around and give something new a place.
Perfect. And we have some more comments coming in. It makes perfect sense. like the use of being overwhelmed. It's just, we have to pay attention to what those words are and investigate a little further.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. Exactly. Investigate, investigate, investigate. Everything that you need to become a super being is literally sitting in your language, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's there. It's waiting for you to decode it and shift it.
I appreciate that when people have this special talent like you do, obviously, Judy, and I will sometimes use some language that will be questioned, and then it just shifts the perspective for me, and I'm just like, wow, it's just incredible. Just pay attention, y'all. But okay, so how can growing up split between two very different households, one extremely affluent and one lower middle class, affect money ideas as adults?
Love this question. I love this question. Here's the thing. If you were split between the two households, you were being asked to make a choice. Often kids are asked to make a choice. That's a very difficult thing to do to any child. If you do that, you're asking them to shut down 50% of who they are at all times. When we're in this household, it's this. When we're in this household, it's this. Now, in terms of money, if in the affluent one, it was well thought of, it was well used, you have this whole code around it, that's great. You really want to latch onto that. In the other household, if it was thought of as bad, greedy, disgusting, those people do, and there were very negative comments around it, what you want to ask yourself is, if I just stop for a second, to whom am I being loyal in my money thoughts and actions and feelings? And how is that affecting me now? I would say to this lovely person, what you want to do is look at, what could I take from each? If you could take brilliant money DNA from the one family, take it. If you could take heart and kindness or whatever it was from the other, take it. There are gifts for both. Don't ever think that you have to choose or make one bad or the other one good. Yes, it will affect your money ideas depending on what you're making good or bad. And it doesn't have to. You've made that a truth. The invitation is, can you make double good rather than good bad? I hope that answers it. Please, if it didn't answer that for you, just give me a follow-up question. But that's a beautiful question.
Excellent. So I don't see anything right now, but is there, besides noticing language, that's hugely important, is there one other tip that you can give people today that they can begin getting curious about themselves and their money DNA to start implementing? What would that be, that tip?
For me, it's pay attention to what it really is. Pay attention to what you say, but also pay attention to what you do. What do you do with money? Do you spend it frivolously? Do you hoard it? Where does that come from? And then the other question to always ask yourself, or there are two. What is my biggest dream with money? In other words, with money as an ally and a friend. What is my biggest dream with money? And what is the one thing that I want to do differently? In other words, what one limitation do I want to set down and make a different truth? Because you can. And that is the quick piece of that is one new thought, one new feeling, one new action. If you do that consistently, and Geremy, you know this, you are rewiring your brain. Those neural networks are firing completely different. You can literally no longer be the same person, and you can change your entire money DNA based on that. What if the financially, can I just go to the question? What if the financial was the poorer one, but the wealthy one focused on flaunting lifestyle as only a high earner rather than a wise investor? Fantastic. You're very lucky. You take the financially responsibility from the one who was poorer, You take the ability to be a high earner from the other, and if you put those two together, you've just honored both, and you have a winning formula for you.
There we go. That makes perfect sense. You take the best of the both worlds, and you'll be good. You'll be good. Thank you. Keep
Please
that in mind.
You got gold, person, whoever you are. You have gold. Take the gold from both and set down. That's the other piece, Geremy. Put down what you don't need. You do not need to be loyal to a family member by perpetuating financial misery. Put it down. What you don't need and change what you should. So yeah, this person's doubly blessed.
So I have a question then. Assuming that you do the work and you've figured everything out with your money DNA, and you've replaced some of these beliefs that you had, and what do you think that person's offspring would inherit those new good money DNA?
Absolutely. Now there are studies actually done about this, and this is why events and conscious switching it around are so important. The epigenetic studies show, they've actually done studies on a thing called the Dutch hunger winter. They've done 9/11 studies, but these show very clearly that while your DNA is laid out as it is, the imprint of significant events and what's going on in the body-mind piece overlay onto the physical DNA. And that imprint travels beyond just that generation. So what you're doing and what you're saying and thinking and acting, if it's significant and it's done deliberately, supersedes one generation and will then become the norm for the subsequent generations. Plus, they're hearing it, they're seeing it, they're watching it, and they're interacting with it. And so, of course, that becomes what's normal.
Yes.
So, yes, you are literally changing that emotional DNA and very possibly the other as well. Absolutely. And you are definitely changing the neurological pathways. Your neural networks are activating differently, which means that your creative brain is swinging into a whole different focus, which means you're not subject to some of those fears and terrors, and you're going to go out and do what you need to do. So absolutely. And the beauty of it is it's practical and doable and easy. It's not terrible.
Okay, so let's see. I want you to tell us in the chat what conversation are you going to have with a loved one, a friend, family member, someone at church that you learned from Judy's talk that you want to share with somebody else. You've got to share that. You think it'll help them, it'll benefit them in some way, or you want to share with them what's the aha moment that you had here. Put it in the comments. I'd love to hear. And so it's very interesting of this talk, Judy. I'm just learning so much. It's incredible. What is your, I guess, ideal client that you love to work with?
Gosh, you know, I literally work across the spectrum. I work with billionaires, legacy families. I work a lot with CFOs and Fortune 50 and 500 companies. But if I was to look at what's an ideal client is the client who's run out of excuses and they're ready to make a change.
There we go. There we go. We're ready to take action. We want to make changes. So they're self-aware. Maybe they don't know exactly what's going on, but they're self-aware that something needs to change. And so you work with billionaires. So I'm assuming some of these are entrepreneurs. You work with families, couples.
I do. I work with you name it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so a lot of people I'm seeing in the chat, are you, Judy, that they're taking
Let me have a look here.
There's a lot coming in. Guys are really excited about what you've taught them today, Judy.
I'm really glad. I'm honored to be here today. I have to tell you, this particular topic is normally a 4-day event. That's how much is in this, because we go through all of the bits and pieces that belong to you. But it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I think the day that I realized that I'd always wanted a good relationship with money, I walked around the block doing one of those gratitude walks, right? And suddenly realized I really wanted permission to be able to speak to money, because of course you don't speak to money. It's a very bad thing. And I can remember sort of having this conversation and thinking, oh, I'm going to get a smack. And when I didn't, it was like, okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful flow. And I teach when I do this, it has, you can treat it as a purely materialistic flow or a spiritual piece. It depends on where you are and how you're evolving. It is a remarkable flow. I love it.
Amazing. I see people talked about even teaching their kids, and that's exactly what I was thinking, is teaching my kids about this. It's just so interesting. And the thing for us is that because my parents are from Mexico, we don't know, we're not so close to knowing all of the generations going back.
Okay, so stop right there, because that's a very important piece.
Okay.
If you don't know what lives in your history, simply have a look at what lives in your patterns, because your patterns are a repeating history. So if you don't have the luxury of that, have a look at your patterns and then listen to two things: what frustrates you the most and what is your heart's desire. The one is the pattern, the multi-generational pattern. The other one is the pattern that's trying to evolve.
You make it sound so easy.
It's so easy.
It seems like you've been doing this for a long time.
It's a little while.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything, like any final thoughts that we haven't covered, talked about? I'll give you the opportunity to do that, because we have about 9 minutes left, just so that way you can get that information to our audience, and then we'll wrap it up with where people can connect with you and about your free prizes that you brought with you today.
What would I say are final thoughts? When I moved over here from South Africa, we walked out with the clothes on our back. We came in with nothing. I have never been so scared in my life. And for about the first 5 years, I think money had fled the hills. It was somewhere else, until I started thinking about it very, very differently and paying attention to what I was telling myself about it, all the ways I was telling myself I wasn't allowed, I'd never have it, it couldn't happen. And I started turning those around just one at a time, teeny tiny things. And after one of the walks that I went for, it started to show up, literally show up on the floors, in odd places. And then it came in through people and contracts, but it couldn't until I could. I had to open to it, and I had to be willing to change patterns in our family, multi-generations of immigration and losing and all of that sort of thing. I had to be willing to change that. And I will say that money is a disciplinarian, but it is such a good friend. It is kind. It is wise. It teaches you a lot. I think I said to you, I sometimes think it goes home and it says to God, the money angel, you know what, God, I thought this was going to be easy. You told me I had the best gig. I've been hissed at, I've been spat at, I've been squandered, I've been given away. I'm not feeling the love here. And so for me, it's very much about, if you can love love, you can love money as well. It will not bite you. It's the lust of money, not the love of money, that is the root of all evil. When you can give it a place of kindness, it will play with you.
That's so deep. You guys are so lucky to be here. And there was a lot of wealth of information dropped earlier in the session. So if you weren't able to be here with us, don't worry, we've got replays for 48 hours. But just a reminder that if you want lifetime access to all of this wealth of information, that truly, I believe every single speaker has something that they can offer you that can change your life and really turn 2021 around. But as a reminder, after the 48 hours, then the recordings are down, but you can opt to get the bundle which you will get a financial report card from me and see how you're doing. You know, we're at the top of the year. If you want to improve in your finances, you've got to know where you're at. And then as a bonus, I will give you the replays of all the interviews for lifetime. So that's just an option. Wanted to remind everybody about that. So Judy, can you tell us where you like people to find you and connect with you? Where's your favorite place?
I can. And also don't forget, I have a free gift for you. So let's not forget
we're
to,
not
but
gonna forget.
where can they find me? They can find me on Judy Wilkins. I wonder if I can type it in here.
Oh, we'll do that for you. Go ahead and just tell us.
Judy Wilkins-Smith.com. I'm also on Instagram. I am on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can pretty much find me.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So, and then find Judy. Okay, we're going to get that information in the chat. What would you like to share as a gift to our audience today, Judy?
Okay, so I know I got to see a whole bunch of these lovely, not faces, but plenty of plenty of good people with great questions. And so the invitation is spend an hour with me on the 20th. I'm going to do a Zoom call. It's open to everybody. If you want to, bring your significant others with you, bring whoever you want. Come and ask me the questions you have, and I will be there for an hour to share with you and to give you whatever you need.
Wow, what a generous gift. Y'all, that's amazing. An hour, another extra hour with Judy.
I will give you an extra hour. Only
I'm a host and I want in on that deal, but
you are most welcome.
You're the audience, so you go first. There's 20 spots. And are we going to drop the link there for people to register, or how are they registering, Judy?
I think you have the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put that link. Okay, so I'm so grateful for you. I learned so much, and I appreciate having you today. And we'll see you next time, Judy. We're gonna try to.
What a lovely place to spend an afternoon. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much for your generosity.
Take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.